Making callouts isn't that difficult, and it's a great way to visually inform your audience what an object is. So let's make one. All right, so just jumping right into DaVinci Resolve. First, we're going to start on the edit page, and what we're going to want to do is cut just the segment that we want to use for the callout itself. We might have, the clip might be actually longer, but just the segment that we are going to have that callout on are we going to turn into a Fusion clip and then manipulate in Fusion. Once we get over to Fusion, I'll explain why. So here is that car. Once it starts to come into frame, I would say right about there is where I'm going to start my my animation. So I'm just going to cut it there, and then just a couple seconds. I think like getting down this far, it's going to be pretty small. So something like that. So we got almost like 7 seconds there, and then we'll just take this little piece and we'll turn it into a Fusion clip. Come over into Fusion. Once we're in here, we can take these guys, move them over just a little bit. And the first thing we're gonna grab is a background node, an ellipse tool, and we're just going to connect this in, just like that. And we're just gonna view it over here for now. And the first little thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a dot and then the line, and then we're going to have the word sitting on top of that line. So we just need to make this dot a lot smaller. As you can see over here how big it is compared to the rest of the shot. So what I like to do is I like to right click on width, and then you get this expression area. And I just like grabbing this plus and bringing it down to height. And what that's going to do is it's going to connect those two. So the width equals height, and so whatever this height value is, the width is gonna follow that as well. So we have a perfect circle the whole time, and it's only one slider we have to deal with. So I'm just gonna make this smaller. I'm holding Control down to have more of a fine adjustment. And then once we get down to here, I'm gonna come into my background and change the color to something else. So we'll start off with a purple. And the reason why I wanted to make this into a Fusion clip is because if I work with the whole clip, it's going to be significantly longer, and we won't start with the beginning at 0, 0. Even if we cut it, it's going to have the in point and out point where we cut. But let's say that clip is 2,000 frames big, the in and out points will just be where that cut is. And I like to start at frame 0 for the clip, and to do that you have to create it into a Fusion clip so that you just start right here at the beginning. Makes it a little easier. So I'm going to start right here. The only downside to doing this is that if I need to manipulate the position of the animation, so if I need to bring it before that cut, then it gets to be a little finicky and we have to do a couple of other things. But this is the easiest way to set up a project if you know exactly where you want your callout to be. So I just like doing it this way. Okay, so here's my first little point, and the next thing I need to do is create that line. So to do that, I'm gonna bring down another background. And for this one, we could grab like a rectangle, connect this in, and then let's connect these two so we can see them together. Right here, we're gonna grab the merge, bring it over here so I can view it. So it's grabbing both of these and bringing it into here. And because I grabbed from the background 1 down to the background 2, that's almost like I wanna take this one and overlap over that one. This connected as the background, and then this connected as the foreground. And that's why we have the dot here. If it didn't, it would look like this and we wouldn't see it because the dot would be underneath if this was. So to switch this, if yours connected incorrectly, you would just hit Control T and then it would switch the two. All right, so you could come in and make your little line. So you could do this and then, go like this, and then, move this to like a 45 or whatever, and then just move it up. You could do something like that, but that would be very cumbersome and animating it would be a pain in the butt. So what we're gonna do instead is we are going to type in paint, and we're gonna get this mask paint tool. And we'll just connect that in. And with the mask paint tool, if we click it, we have the ability to make a path. So all we're gonna do is click right in the center where that path is, or where that circle is. We'll click there, and that's where our first point will be. And now we will hold Shift. And now we'll see that it snaps at 45s. So we'll just bring it in, so something like that. And I'm still holding Control, and then it'll come out and I'll snap it like that. And now I have a little path. And the really cool with paint, with the mask paint tool, is down here in stroke, we can do a right on and right off. So that's pretty much why I wanted to use this. One thing that I don't like when you first get it is it adds this like soft edge. It's obviously a little too thick for my liking. So that's pretty much where we're at this point. And if you've noticed, I've kept everything right in the center. It's because later down the road, when we add like a tracker and stuff, it makes it a little easier to add on to our project. Okay, the next thing that we need to add is we need to add some text in. So we have our text here. We're just going to connect this in, and we're gonna view it. And then look at our text. In our texts, we'll just put black car, and we'll click on our text so that we can move it up here. I'm gonna change it to a font that I actually like. Looks good, and maybe make it a little smaller. So something like that. And I'll bring it over to this side. Okay, so far we have everything. Nothing's animated, nothing's moving, but we have pretty much everything made. I'm gonna change the color of this because I don't like that. Let's get a more interesting color, something like that. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna do is now add in some animations. And because we know that at frame 0, it's right here, that's kind of where we want everything to start. First one I'm going to work on is the circle. So I'm just going to, even though that we're not going to keep it here, I'm just going to add keyframes for now. So a keyframe at 0, come up to, let's say, frame 15, add a keyframe there, and then we're going to add one more. Let's do 25. Depending on what your project's frame rate is at, those are going to vary for your project. I'm going to click on Spline. And as you can see, width equals height, so we don't need to be concerned with that. But down here, height, we'll click that. One thing that I like to do is click this Show Only Selected tool. And I like getting into the habit of doing that because when you have projects that have a ton of different keyframes, it gets kind of hectic in the Spline editor. And when we add a tracker, you'll see what I mean by hectic. Okay, so frame 0. Now we're gonna add in my animation. So this is obviously going to be down to 0. And if we watch this, it just gets big. And I'll show you why I added 2 more keyframes here. So at frame 15, I'm just gonna click this little button so we can see all of our keyframes. And if I highlight over frame 15, what you'll notice is that we have a handle on both sides. If I didn't have this keyframe here, I would only have one handle. So now that I have 2 handles, if I hit F, it's gonna add it easing in. There's no ease in add over here because it's just, straight line. So we have it coming in, and we have handles. So I'm just going to grab this handle here and twist it just like that. And then I'm gonna hold middle mouse button to move up my graph here. And I'm gonna grab this handle, and I'm just going to pull it out a little bit. So what we have going on here is it's going to start at 0 and it's going to work its way up. It's actually going to overshoot our size, so it's going to come up and then it's going to come back down. It's going to come to our size, but then it's going to go down and then back up to our size. So we're going to have like a little bounce effect. So let's take a look at that. Okay. kind of where we're at. I think that I'm actually going to move this out to 30. I think I like that a little bit better. Okay, it's looking good. Now I'll come over here. I'm gonna zoom in on this. That looks fine. I think I'm actually gonna move this over just a little bit, just like that. Okay, that looks good. So now we have this is stopping at frame 30. So let's just do 31. We will click on our mask paint node and we will keyframe it and pull the end down. And let's do something like that. So when we add 14 frames, and we will extend this. So let's take a look at what our animation looks like so far. Comes up and it goes across. Okay, the mask paint tool, I am going to make another keyframe. Let's just come out to 50. Then come back. I'm going to click that button to get rid of that keyframe, and then I'm going to highlight. This is the end key because that's the one that's moving. I'm going to hit F just to add some easing in, and then I'm going to hit T and change this ease in to something else. So something like that. Okay, that's not that bad. I could make it a little longer, but I'll leave it like that for right now. All right, so next we have our text. And I think our text, like right in here, I think that's when we're gonna start our text animation. So you could do a couple of different things with text. I also have a right on with the text. I could do that, but I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have it slide in from nothing, I guess you could say. So I'm just going to grab a rectangle tool, and this rectangle tool, I'm just concerned with this edge here, because you have to have it inside the tool for it to show up. So I'm just going to bring it over just like that. So if the black card text goes outside the boundaries of this box, it won't be visible. So now that I set that, the text, I'm going to come over here to positions, and I will set a keyframe there, and that's just visually represented here, just so I can come back to it then. And then I'm going to come up to, let's do 65, set a keyframe there, then I'll come back over here. Now that I'm over here, I'll grab this handle, bring it over like that. I'll take a look at this. I'm just going to add easing to both sides, and then this side maybe increase it a little bit more. Now let's take a look at our whole animation that we have here. It's not bad. Not bad at all. Take this and maybe increase this a bit more. And then one other thing, since this is the node that's actually doing the moving for the text, I'll come over here and I can add in motion blur. And adding motion blur, it's going to add a little extra render time to that. But I think it's worth it for the effect. So let's take a look at that. Much better. Okay, so now we have our whole call out pretty much done. Now we need to work on this video because we need to track that in. So we have down here our media in, media out. I'm going to click on the media in. I'm going to hit Shift spacebar, and then in here I'm just going to type in track for the tracker and hit enter. And now I have this little guy up here. And if you've never used a tracker before, On the inside, that's where you're going to state what you want tracked. And then on the outside, that is the boundaries that the tracker has to find what was in the last frame represented inside of here. So whatever you set in here, when it goes to the next frame, if it changes in here, it will look within these boundaries for the closest thing that looks like it. So you don't want to make these really big, because if you make these really big, you end up, it just grabs other things that look similar to whatever your tracking point was. And if you make the tracking point too big, you have normally what looks like sliding, where it will be on something, it'll be tracked to that, but it'll slide around and it won't be accurate. So it's kind of like a fine-tuned balance between the two. And when you're picking your location, you normally want to pick spots that have high contrast. So like, look at that license plate. That would be like a high contrast point. But I'm not going to start my tracker there. I'm going to come back to here and I'll grab my tracker point here. And I'm just going to do the license plate just because it'll be the easiest thing, because when it gets way out here, you won't really see much, and hopefully it'll stay locked to that point. Okay, down here we have a little bit of information, what it's currently looking at, and it gives a couple of values. And most of the time you don't really have to work with this. If you're having like big tracking problems, you can track like a particular color channel and different things like that, and you can feed different things into a tracker if you need it to. So you could make a shot sharper to have like more contrast so that it grabs the spot a little bit better. But it's whatever that comes into here. So you wouldn't want to put all of this in front of the tracker, because then the call out would be represented as part of the image, and it would struggle trying to track around that. So anything that you're trying to get as clean of a plate as possible when you're doing the tracking. And then sometimes you can manipulate how the input looks by doing different things to the shot to make them a little easier to track, because we have like motion blur here. So let's just see how this goes. So we'll come up here and we'll click this button to do a full track, and we see we're skipping around. So what I'll do is I'm just going to stop it, say yes, and we'll come back and we'll look, and we stop tracking at this point. So currently what it's saying is that it's tracking this, but it's kind of like yellow. So what we'll do is we will grab our tracker, we're gonna make it a little smaller and make this window a little smaller so it can't get out of here. And from this point, actually we'll come all the way back to the beginning. And we'll just start to retrack again and see what happens. Okay, we're still skipping around. So as you've seen there, I had to stop a couple of times and then resize everything and then continue. So this button over here is going to do the whole thing, and if you have to stop at some point, you're going to pick wherever the frame that it looks the best that you could set it up again, and then you just change the size of the pattern and then the possible search area, and then you click this button and then it'll continue on. And you could change the frames per point. I just did every frame, but you could do less, and then sometimes you have like a smoother track, because in between there it'll just average out whatever that distance is that it has to move. So you could do in between that. So now that I have all of these, see like I'm saying down here where you get all these keyframes. So now that I have that and we have this here, what we're gonna do is we are going to take a, we're gonna go from this animation, and we're going to, because we had to add this sharpening, we don't want to see that, but the tracker needed to see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out of the call out, and we're gonna go to the out of the media in, and then that will come up here as a merge. And then we are going to go from here, the merge, we're out of the merge into the media out. So now this is what we see. This is the shot that we had. And now what we're gonna do is in this merge, we are going, or excuse me, in this merge here, this can go right to here. That doesn't have to go there. Okay, and then this merge here, because this is the foreground, this is this element, we are going to change the center position to have the tracking data. So the easiest way to do this is we just highlight both of them, and then they'll be over here. We're gonna open up the merge, double clicking it, and the center position, we're just going to right click on it and expression. And now we're gonna grab the data from the tracker, come into the tracker. We only had one tracker one, center one. We'll let it release on there. And now it's connected to that tracker data. And if we look, we're on the back of the car. We come to the beginning here, we have that animation starting at the beginning, and it's following the car all the way down the road. And we never made a a way for all of this stuff to come off. So I guess we have to add that quick. So let's go back to just this, and we have to do all of our, however we're gonna animate it off. So how I think I'm gonna animate this off, let's start with the text. I'm going to change the position of this so that it goes right to the edge of that. So I think with the text, I'm just gonna have the text drop down, have the line animate back. So we're gonna just have it, let's go 60, I don't know, 160. We're on the text, and we're gonna click center position, keyframe there, and then it's 15 keyframes here. We are going to have it go down. So then that's out of there. And next, we're going to, right here at that same number, we're gonna come to the mask point, or excuse me, mask paint, and we are going to keyframe there, and another 15 frames. We're going to have that come back. On that same keyframe, we're gonna come over here to our ellipse tool, keyframe there, and then come here and in. And now, if we take a look at this, and we watch it from the beginning, oops, hold on, fit. Have it come out. And we have a little bit of jumping around, but the rest of this is looking perfectly fine. I've seen it jump just once. And we're going all the way through right now. Rendering, rendering, rendering. And because Wallace is going, because we have this going to media out, now this is going back to the edit page. So we'll have it right there in the edit page for, you know, to continue on with our project. And then we have the dot go away. So now, back over the edit page, now we have that all in here, and we have the rest of the shot. So it's not that hard to make a call out and link it up with some tracking data from a shot. And you know, we had a little bit of a problem there with tracking, but you know, with a little more time, you could really get that smooth, and maybe not every keyframe, maybe every 3-4 keyframes, something like that, depending on how many frames per second you have, to really smooth those out a little bit less, and it'll just fill in those gaps instead of tracking, you know, the wrong thing and skipping around a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this one. And with that being said, my name's JR, and thanks for watching.